So, hey Leo, my name is Chris, and this is your beautiful reading for pretty much the second half of 2026, which is fall and winter, I would say. And I'm doing the Celtic Cross, and we are remembering joy. That's the center here of the Celtic Cross with the Six of Cups. Knight of Pentacles, that means you got something going already. So I think you already made the right decision. You already favorized joy and happiness into your life, Maybe next to something very practical that you keep going with that. You're on the right path. The foundation is the High Priestess, and not the High Priestess, the Empress actually. All four freaking queens rolled into one. There's the Ace of, not the Ace of Cups, the Page of Cups. You know, you're doing what you love to do and have some fun with it. There's a very practical, down-to-earth aspect to it, but pretty much the Cups energies, Page of Cups, Six of Cups. Six of Cups is so beautiful. Remembering joy, and then the Knight of Pentacles. Not so much hustling and bustling all the freaking time. You do something very practical, protect your little pentacles, right? Make sure that your little seedlings are blossoming, but by all means, smell the flowers, right? Be sure that you create joyfully every freaking day. That's super important in 2026. Especially the second half of 2026, the foundation, inner mastership, resting within yourself with the Empress. The Empress, that's the power couple of 2026, right? The Empress, inner mastership, and you're already, just by doing that, you're completely in alignment with the new frequency, with the new tuning of our consciousness. Joyful loving creation on a daily basis. Be very practical, but it's no longer Pluto in Capricorn. It's no longer this hustling and bustling and going with the head through the wall and doubling down on our efforts and always giving 110% and going faster and faster and checking boxes and, you know, doing to-do lists and, you know, oh, everything was so tense and, you know, no more. You just slow down. That's the only stationary knight in the tarot deck, the Knight of Pentacles. Remember joy. Okay, so we got the Hierophant, that's the spiritual leader. Then you got the Empress, that's the foundation, that's the inner mastership. And then you make a step outward into the world and you appear there as the Emperor. I mean, the Hierophant, the Empress, and the Emperor, but you don't need to prove anything. You already are there. And the secret is to just, you know, reduce all the factors in your life, or get rid of all the factors in your life that produce stress, that produce drama, that cause tension and disorientation and things like that. The secret to all that mastership with the Hierophant and the Emperor and the Empress, are you kidding me, is just such a light-hearted joy, playfulness almost, right? You just, there's the victory march, right? That's your energy, Six of Wands. The conflict is over, Five of Swords in the outside position. Do not go back there. There is something that is completely over, but thank God it's over, right? So think about you since 2008. I think you were pretty much working your freaking ass off. Balance is restored. So what goes down comes up again. What comes up goes down again. So most likely, if you're resonating with this channel, you're on the more empathic side. Most likely you had a hard time since 2008, right? You are really working hard for something. Bottom of the deck, playfulness, right? The Knight of Wands is here. This Pluto in Capricorn approach, where we had to work very, very fast and run work very, very hard and run very, very fast, barely just to make ends meet, right? That is over. That old version And certainly the narcissistic abuse that followed that since the last 9 years, I would say, the 9-year cycle also coming to a closure. So the conflict is over. Let's not forget. Don't brag about it, right? Don't provoke, don't, divine humble pride, right? But just move on from it. Be done with it. Do not brag about it. Do not, poke anybody. Just let it be over and let it be done. That old approach of you not being your friend, and this is completely over. And thank freaking God, it's over. I mean, and this is how you appear, right? And you're just leading by example, by just doing what you love to do. And it's so easy. That's how you appear, basically. 6 of Wands is kind of your energy victory march, right? But this is what you actually do, right? Compare that. This is how you appear, super successful, super this, super that, right? But the secret is so simple. So, you pay your bills, right? You might have a job, right? But you carve out space and time for joyful, loving creation, doing that which you love to do, and, just no grandiosity, just doing that on a daily basis creates all of that beauty, all of that power, right? Leading by example, not forcing anything to happen, being a friend to yourself, resting within your own integrity, your own authenticity, and leading in that way. Maybe you become a leader without even trying to become a leader, because what you do is just remembering joy. Seems like a good second half of 2026 for you. So beautiful energies. I'm going to clarify that. Look, you're just the 9 of Cups, one of my most beloved cards of the tarot deck. Doing what you love to do. Divine humble pride in it. Not being loud or aggressive or look at me, narcissistic about it. Just being in divine humble pride. You deserve this, right? Something, 6 of Pentacles, is balanced out, right? So if you indeed had a hard time since 2008, especially in the last 9-year cycle, I would say, there's an upswing coming, right? You get 2 times the Knight of Wands now. Playfulness coming back into our lives, right? Innocent, divine playfulness. And what you're doing on a daily basis gives you a reward while you're doing it on a daily basis. Just by doing it. It's not so much about the outcome, but about being there in the moment, enjoying what you do. Like going for a walk. It's not about getting from A to B, right? When you go to work, you want to get from A to B as fast as you can. But if you go for a walk, right? It's not about the end and the start point. It's about, enjoying the path in between. That's what going for a walk is all about. And these 2 aspects, need to be in a balance. Going from A to B, if you have to go to work, you want to go there as fast as you can, right? Because A to B, that's just a necessary thing to do, right? But if you go for a walk, that in between is everything that it's all about. And these 2 aspects need to be in a balance, 2 of Pentacles, and since 2008, they were not in balance. That was so one-sided and toxic. Chariot is here. The Emperor with the Tower. I would say you're going to kick a few asses, I wanted to say, but try not to do that, actually. I don't think you need to do that, but you're going to disappoint probably a few illusions that other people might have just by being yourself. Can we say that? There's the Sun card with the victory march. It just keeps getting better and better. Look at that. The five in your outside position, the five of swords with the 5 of swords, 2 times the 5 of swords. Do not fight windmills. Do not argue with people. You just do focus everything you've got on joyful, loving creation. And there is practicality here with the 6 of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles. But, you know, be rational, be smart about your life, pay your bills, and by all means, balance that with joyful, loving creation, not just on a weekend, on a freaking daily basis. That one-sidedness, that hustling and bustling, how you worked basically, and maybe you just focused on working since 2008, needs to be in a balance. And you might have been going through some sort of hard, dark night of the soul. Well, now there is a brand new day. You know, dark night of the soul gets its balance, so to speak, and there the sun comes out. Here comes the sun, right? Power couple, Page of Cups, and the Knight of Wands. Not suffering for your passion, but being joyful, being playful with it. You know, these are the 2 aspects of passion, right? Not first you suffer for it, but then you get the hang of it. First you get the cross, then you get the cup, aka the Grail, right? That's how it is. And maybe you had the cross since, if we refer to Christian mythology, which is not my thing, but I grew up in, you know, that context. But maybe you had the cross, maybe you were suffering for your passion, maybe you were trying to build something and it was really, really hard, you know, that working hard thing, you know, on the expense of your own joy and happiness on a daily basis. This is completely over, and it was very one-sided, and it was very dark night of the soulish, right? 5 of Pentacles clarifying the 2 of Pentacles. So, but now there is the upswing. So the dark night of the soul is turning into a bright new day. And this bright new day is actually beginning of a 19-year cycle. Pluto in Aquarius now. Pretty much 19 years. Whether you want it or not, you got the Hierophant, the spiritual master, you got the inner mastership, all 4 freaking queens rolled into one with the Empress. So you worked hard on yourself to purify yourself, to, you know, call yourself out on all the bullshit and get all the shadow aspects from under the rug out there. Look at it. You know, sort it out, what belongs to me, what does not belong to me, what was added in there by darker forces, right? Sort it out. What belongs to me, what does not belong to me, what is relevant to me, what is irrelevant to me. And then you either repent or make it good, take responsibility for that, or you just say, you know what, that's not so bad. I love myself, that belongs to me, and you integrated your shadow. And this shadow work, super successful. Hierophant, right? Spiritual master. This is somebody who did shadow work successfully. Hierophant, inner mastership, you resting within yourself, joy and happiness. And that's the secret of it, right? That emperor, how you present yourself to the outside world, right? Whether you want it or not, some sort of leadership role will be handed to you, or you will just be seen as that, right? But the secret of it all is the Empress and the Hierophant. So inner mastership on a daily basis. How do you cultivate that? How do you keep that? How do you maintain that? Breath work. 10 seconds in, 20 seconds out. And really push it out at the end. It all needs to go. That's how you release negativity. Do that for 10 minutes, do that for 5 minutes if you've never done it. Do that for half an hour or an hour if you are really into it, right? And then do meditation, same amount of time, right? If you can do 15 minutes of breath work and 15 minutes of meditation, then you're really, really good. Do that on a daily basis, but don't force yourself to do too much at the beginning if you've never done it. if you're starting with that 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, right? There are apps for that to visualize your breath. It's not about 10 in and 20 out. You can do 5 in, 10 out, right? The most important thing is that the out breath is 2 times that of the in breath. So 7, 14, 8 and 16, 9 and 18, 10 and 20, right? The out breath 2 times that of the in breath. There are apps to visualize that. Get that freaking app. And you do that on a daily basis, on a freaking daily basis, just like you brush your teeth or you do your workout or whatever. Most people don't have a problem with going to the gym and doing a workout, but sitting there and just breathing or meditating seems to be, for some people, like a waste of time, but it's totally not, because you're cultivating that inner sense state, that inner peace, and this is where all of your power, all of your strengths, all of your resilience is coming from. Breathwork and meditation, combine these two. That's the most important thing. Then you can do, in addition to that, going for a walk, swimming, riding your freaking bike or whatever, going to the gym or whatever you do, right? Physical exercise in combination with that. That's really good. And then, whether you want it or not, you maintain that inner mastership on a daily basis, and then whether you want it or not, you will be seen or step into a role, or maybe even pushed into a role of leadership, right? From the empress to the emperor. So you have to call the shots, and you have to say what's what, and you have to maybe kick a few asses. There's the tower here, right? So you have to stop a few. You just have to speak your truth and act accordingly, right? Call out BS for BS. Do not sugarcoat stuff. But, it seems like you have to. There is the tower connected to it, right? So you have to kick a few asses, but try not to be too cocky. Try not to be too, you don't want to behave like the narcissist that you might have met through your dark night of the soul, right? That might have been there all along, maybe since 2008, very toxically. So you don't want to be like them. You don't want to be like shady people who push others down in order to give themselves the false sense of elevation. Because if you push others down, you're not elevating yourself. You're actually lowering yourself, your standards, just by pushing someone else down. You're lowering your standards. But primitive people, for them, that's enough, right? To enhance the distance between you and the other person gives them a false sense of elevation, which is a false sense of elevation because you're not rising your frequency, you're actually lowering it. But you're lowering the other person even more so that the distance between you and the other person increases, which is just pitiful and disgusting, right? So don't be an asshole leader. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The Hierophant, the Empress, and now what comes next? There's the Victory March with the Sun card. Boo, it's fantastic. Joyful loving creation. Never forget that. Do your meditation, do your breathwork, joyful loving creation. Easygoing maintenance of your pentacles, everything's fine. And then there's the leadership role. Don't be a freaking asshole. Be a responsible, decent, good leader, right? Even if you have to present towery news or truths, right? If you can speak your truths with love, some truths are harder to speak with love than others, but just don't behave like an asshole. Plato, the measure of a man is what he does with power. So don't behave like the people you don't like. Don't behave like narcissistic, antagonistic, toxic people. Be a leader, lead by example. The measure of a man is what he does with power and how he treats other people. Not pushing them down, but uplifting them if they are ready and willing to receive that, right? And if not, then, you know, there is the Tower, so you have to call out people probably. Never lie. If you feel like it's necessary to lie, you're in the wrong setting, you're in the wrong environment. Never ever lie, not to yourself, not to other people. Right? That's just, even for that, there are exceptions, right? So that is what Immanuel Kant, that's the famous example of him. So if a serial killer knocks at your door and asks for your friend, then you fucking lie, right? Is he upstairs? No, of course not. Even if he is, of course, you know. So of course, in such a situation, you would lie to protect someone. But if there's no threat, no serial killer at the door, so to speak, Immanuel Kant, that famous example, that even sometimes it's necessary to lie, but that's the exception, right? If the serial killer knocks at the door, asks for your husband or your friend or your child or whatever, you lie, right? But other than that, you speak the truth, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the other people. It's just the right thing to do. Stand ambiguity. When you cannot falsify or verify something, you just have to accept ambiguity. In other words, if you don't know if something is true or not true, if you're not sure if something is right or wrong, then a good leader can also say, look, I have to think about that. I don't know right now, so I have to think about that. I come back to you, something like that. That is not a failure. That is actually a sign that you are really, truly not lying to yourself, not lying to other people, and you're really dealing with stuff, right? Standing ambiguity. Don't pretend that you know everything. Sometimes you just have to shrug your shoulders and say, oh, I haven't thought about that. I have to think about that before I can make a decision. Ground yourself with sacred earth is here. Yeah, that's pretty clear actually. So connect to Mother Nature. If it's just going for a walk, right, that is going to help you. So what are we doing on a daily basis? Honestly, breath work, even if it's just 5 minutes, combine that, even if it's just 5 minutes as well with meditation. So we do breath work, we do meditation, and we do some sort of physical exercise, whether it's just going for a walk or riding your bike or whatever. If you do that every freaking day and combine that with, you know, maintaining your pentacles, what is your work most likely, and joyful, playful, loving creation, 9 of Cups, 6 of Cups, Page of Cups, Queen of Cups is here as well. That's a well-rounded, beautiful life. Trust the great mystery. And that leadership role, right? The measure of a man is what he does with power. And I would say the measure, that was Plato 2000 years ago. So the measure of a woman, of course, the measure of a freaking unicorn trans person is what he, she, it, whatever does with love, right? It's not about gender. It's about what you do with power. What you do with power, right? Not with love. Hopefully you execute power with love and compassion. But having said that, if there is a narcissistic, toxic person, call them freaking out, you know, say what's what. If somebody tries to disturb your circle, somebody tries to be mean to yourself or to other people, then you know, there's a tower attached to that emperor here. Doesn't mean that you kick asses all the freaking time just for the fun of it. But if it's necessary, then by all means, kick a few asses. Having said that, check out your yearly reading, check out your sun, moon, and rising, and hopefully see you next time. Namaste, my friend. Ciao.